911, what he had to cover your mouth to say.
My husband is dead. He has blood under his head. No. It's so bloody.
He's all bloody?
Yeah.
Where's he bleeding from?
It looks like the back of his head. It looks like somebody's been through here.
This chilling 911 call was made by Miriam Helmick on June 10th, 2018. She claimed to have just found her husband, Alan Helmick, dead on the kitchen floor.
Alan was on the floor in the kitchen. It looked like he had been shot in the head, and we had a bullet casing next to his body.
When officers asked if she had any idea who could be responsible, Miriam pointed the finger at her own stepson.
You know, I like you because you're doing this.
But the case quickly took a strange turn. Miriam told police she had discovered a note left by the killer.
There's a card inside that says, "Alan's first, you're next. Run, run, run."
A mysterious message that only deepened the puzzle. Then came the most unexpected twist. Detectives realized the murder appeared to be inspired by the plot of a movie.
The crime scene reminded investigators of a movie scene?
After that harrowing 911 call, police in Whitewater, Colorado rushed to the scene. What they found matched the urgency of Miriam's call. 62-year-old businessman Alan Helmick had been shot and killed.
It looked like the house had been ransacked.
At that point, she sees Alan laying on the kitchen floor on his back with blood under his head.
Alan was on the floor in the kitchen. It looked like he had been shot in the head, and we had a bullet casing next to his body. They did a very quick security sweep to make sure there wasn't a suspect still on scene.
At first glance, the scene suggested a robbery gone wrong. Drawers were pulled open, trash cans overturned. But something didn't sit right. Police brought Miriam in for questioning. She calmly walked detectives through her day, providing receipts, timestamps, and even voice memos to verify her movements.
I had some errands I need to run today, so he was gonna, we would meet later, so he got in the shower and got dressed. Okay, what time did you leave?
Cell tower data backed up her story.
She started listing off everywhere she had been. She told us that she was calling Alan several times, was getting his voicemail.
Hi, Alan. I just want to let you know I'm going to Walmart. If you're going to meet me for lunch.
She was prepared, too prepared. Still, with no hard evidence against her, and her alibi seemingly solid, Miriam was free to go.
They take those items to check them for any kind of gunshot residue or blood spatter that might indicate Miriam had something to do with this. And those results came back negative.
Did he have any enemies, any problems with any of his contracting work going on, any disputes? Would he share that with you if he did?
I think so. He shared a lot with me.
Detectives asked if Alan had any enemies. Miriam said no, but when investigators returned to the scene for a second look, the staged nature of the robbery became obvious. This wasn't random, it was planned and personal. Just as the investigation began to stall, Miriam dropped a bombshell. 6 weeks before Alan's murder, something strange had happened. It became clear someone had been watching Alan for some time.
In Delta. And somebody tried to torch our car. So the car actually got torched in Delta?
When asked again who might want Alan dead,
well, Alan and Miriam had driven to Delta for the closing on their business. They were selling Alan's title company to a purchaser, and they had finished the transaction and had parked out front and collected a check for over $100,000 for the sale of this business, and got in the car. And while she's in the business, the car starts smoking.
Alan looked in the mirror and saw that the vehicle was on fire. He got out of the vehicle, went to the back of the car, and a wick was in the gas tank.
When Miriam comes out, she hears that Alan's screaming at her to bring her to get a fire extinguisher, that the car's on fire.
Miriam pointed to someone close, his son, Alan Jr.
Alan didn't have a lot of enemies, and so who would want to kill Alan in that kind of way by blowing up his car? That was a real mystery.
You have no idea who would do this to you or Alan?
No, not at all. I mean, it's just weird. I don't know. We've been hashing it over last night.
I do not. Over the years, active as I was in business in this area, there's going to be some unhappy people because I turn people down on loans from time to time. But I think I was well respected in the savings loan industry. There are two people that have had a problem.
Okay, who are those two people?
I can't imagine them being vindictive because they're too much exposed.
Right.
They did stupid things, but they're not stupid people. Oh God, no, I don't think that.
Not at all.
That would be terrible. Now, why would you do that?
What would she gain if you died yesterday?
What he would get is a mess. She gets nothing that was created prior to the marriage.
Tell me more about Alan Jr.
He's had run-ins with the law.
What was the relationship between Alan and Alan Jr. 3 to 4 months ago?
Same.
Same
It's been
distance?
that way for many years.
Okay, kind of
Very
steady apart.
distant.
Okay.
There's some real animosity there.
Does Alan Jr. know where you guys live now?
He's been there.
Alan had no biological children with Miriam. His children were from his first marriage. What looked like a blended family was more complicated beneath the surface.
Miriam talked about how Alan and Alan Jr. never got along, and that there was some falling out between the two of them and some animosity.
Detectives brought in Alan Jr. for questioning. He denied any involvement and had an alibi. He was out of state.
After that car fire 6 weeks earlier, Alan had also mentioned his strained relationship with his son to those investigators.
I didn't have a seat, and I
Right here?
yes, that's
All right.
fine.
He's the kind of guy that if he saw something that wasn't right, he would give you his 2 cents about it, and it would not be nice. It would be sharp.
He just told it as it is.
Yeah, it's sharp. Yeah, right out.
Sure.
My dad's like, you're out. You're
Right.
You're right. You because you're doing this. Dad would give me a dime.
Okay. Did you ask?
No, I'm sure that I had back then, and they repeated, hey, this is something you need to learn to take care of yourself.
Where were you Tuesday? Because everybody's been asked that question.
And, I'm not an ignorant human being.
Right.
And I would be offended if you didn't ask those questions. In fact, I would be angry with you if you didn't ask them in that way. Would have been working on the computers. I would have been at the hostel on the computer.
In Seattle.
She was with her friend Penny. They had just gotten back from shopping. She goes up to her front door and she sees an envelope sticking out from under the mat. And when she opens that envelope, there's a card inside that says, "Alan's first, you're next. Run, run, run."
What was written inside that envelope sent it.
His answers were consistent, and for now, he was ruled out. A mysterious envelope arrived. Its contents were deeply unsettling. It wasn't just cryptic, it was threatening. Investigators knew they were now dealing with someone far more dangerous than they initially imagined.
She collapses to the ground, becomes very distraught.
Marion calls me and she's frantic. And she goes, "What should I do?" And I said, "Well, you need to hang up the phone and call the police and get out of there." I said, "Because somebody could be there trying to hurt you."
Greeting card is turned over by Miriam to her lawyer, who then notifies the police.
I was given a copy of the card. It said, "To the grieving widow" in block letters. On the front is a picture of a middle-aged female. And it said, "Insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result." And then inside, Alan spelled A-L-L-E-N, misspelled. Your was also Y-O-U-R. A grammatical thing, okay.
Whoever left it there had cut out the barcode, seemingly in an effort to obfuscate anybody tracing that card, where it was purchased, who purchased it, that sort of thing.
It looks like Miriam might be the next target.
Maybe there is somebody out there who really wants to kill Miriam as well.
They reviewed security footage. For a while, nothing seemed out of the ordinary.
They got in touch with the manufacturer of the card. He was able to tell them where these cards were sold.
I checked the Hallmark. I checked the Hobby Lobby We finally get to the city markets. I contacted their loss prevention guy. They found 2 cells. One person paid in cash, didn't know who that person was. The other one was with a credit card. So we had a name, and then he found one more purchase. He called me and he's like, I've got video.
That store uses VHS tapes?
That particular store was not as up to date as their others, and they did use VHS, and they used it over and over and over again. So by the time we got this tape, it was kind of delicate.
Until they spotted a familiar face, Miriam. Her explanation, vague and oddly humorous, but the detectives weren't laughing.
It was her. She was wearing the same style of shirt that she had walked in with her interview. It was just a different color combination.
Detectives turned to Alan's children. All 3 revealed that in the weeks before his death, Alan had become distant.
What Miriam told them is that she felt like the police weren't paying enough attention to the case. They weren't doing much. And so she wanted to kind of jog that with this card.
He's been completely out of character, drastically since January. It's odd for my dad. You've seen him change. You've seen him change his character. And maybe not so much see him change his character, but through her, I can't even get to him.
And every time I called, Miriam answered. Before
His phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
His cell phone. Which I thought was weird. He always answered his phone.
He'd stopped returning their calls and communication was filtered through Miriam.
Hey, Miriam, this is Christy. I've been calling my dad for about a week, and I'm not hearing back.
I'm like, well, Dad, is your home phone hooked up? He's like, no. I'm like, well, how does anybody get a hold of you? Well, Mary doesn't.
Who often blamed his poor health. Had Alan been poisoned?
Father's never sick. My father's like an ox. And he was, every time I would talk to him, he was sick.
And did he say what he was sick from?
He didn't know. I don't think he had a clue.
But he said he couldn't even stand up. He was so dizzy.
Then the children dropped a shocking piece of information. Miriam's former husband, Jack Giles, had also died of a gunshot wound to the head.
There was the sudden loss of her daughter, and then a shocking development with her first husband.
While Miriam and her first husband, Jack, were in bed, Jack shot himself in the head. Police ruled it a suicide. There were some strange circumstances, though. Things like he used his right hand to pull the trigger. Jack was a lefty.
His death had been ruled a suicide, but now it looked suspicious. After Alan's death, Miriam didn't wait long before she began seeing someone new, a wealthy man.
Miriam had contacted me first. She wrote, saw your profile and loved it. I can dance, any dance, and I'm pretty good at it. Your profile requirement described me complete to a T.
She says, I'm going to go down there. I said, you're what? I mean, this is just months after Alan had died. Even my girls were like, she's dating already? And I said, yeah.
Her grieving widow act didn't match her actions. Even worse, the murder weapon, a .25 caliber handgun.
One of Alan's children said she specifically remembered seeing a .25 caliber pistol in his sock drawer.
They couldn't find that gun after the murder.
Was missing. But if police could find it and tie it to Miriam, the case could finally break open. They secured a warrant to examine her phone and computer. The search history? Disturbing. In the months leading up to the murder, Miriam had looked up methods of killing and even movies with similar murder.
I recovered approximately 180 online medical searches for things such as Viagra overdose, Ambien overdose, lisinopril overdose, a combination of those 3 drugs mixed together, pain-killing overdoses.
I think she was looking at various ways to kill Alan.
Plots. Detectives dug into the couple's cable bill. One title stood out, a movie eerily similar to Alan's death.
After all the dust had settled, our investigators started thinking about what had transpired in Delta. They thought, this sounds like the car explosion scene in No Country for Old Men, which had just come out in the last year and was a popular movie where the villain had created a distraction by lighting a magazine, sticking it into the gas inlet, and exploding the car.
As police are looking into this, they discovered that the Helmicks had rented that movie about 4 days prior to the incident.
It seemed Miriam had used the film as a blueprint. They now suspected Miriam had tried multiple times to kill her husband. From an unexplained illness to a failed car explosion, nothing had worked until now. Just as hope was dwindling,
my grandfather went a little crazy and tried to shoot my grandmother in their front lawn one day.
We went out there with metal detectors, and after some time we were able to locate the bullet.
Are you kidding? You found a bullet that had been fired in 1989? Amazing. We don't get those sorts of breaks.
one of Alan's children came forward with a memory from 1989 involving the very gun used in the murder. It gave investigators their first real lead on where the missing weapon might be, and if they could find that gun, it could be the final piece of evidence to close the case, for good.
There were suspicious bank account activity where it appeared that Miriam had forged multiple checks from Alan's account. All told, she had taken about $40,000 out of his account through writing those checks.
It had been fired from his own weapon. However, now they had a lead to chase. And if they could find the murder weapon and link it to Miriam, it would be the evidence they needed to close the case once and for all.
I was able to determine that the bullet recovered from the yard corresponded with the bullet from the victim in number of land and groove impressions and their widths. I was able to determine also that the fired bullet from the yard was a right-hand twist. My result was that the two bullets could have been fired by the same.
While the police now had a decent amount of circumstantial evidence against Miriam, they were still on the hunt for something more concrete. They were able to apply for a warrant to review her phone records and computer, and what they found would leave them shaken to their core.
She had said that she found out that a car won't explode if it has a full tank of gas.
And when she said that, what was her demeanor?
She laughed.
That catch you off guard?
Pretty much.
The time frame of these searches was in the months leading up to his murder.
Once you got inside, what did you see?
I saw Alan on the floor. I dropped my bags and went to him. He was cold and gray. I held his hand for a few minutes and tried to make some sense of it all.
The very same time that Alan's children had said he'd mysteriously fallen ill and had distanced himself from them. Could his sickness have been due to Miriam's attempts to get him to overdose? Though they had no way to prove this, they now wondered if Miriam had tried to kill her husband in other ways.
Acting at that time, weren't you?
Yes, just briefly.
You concocted a complete ruse to lead them on a wild goose chase away from you and towards some phantom killer out there, correct?
If they'd actually had contacted me or listened, then maybe I wouldn't have been at that point.
He could look up online anytime and see what was coming out of his bank account. Nobody stopped him from doing that. So anything that was written with his approval.
Did you steal any money from Alan?
No, I didn't take anything from him because everything that was put into the bank went into his bank account. None of it came to me.
Before she'd finally been successful, and that's when they realized that she could likely have been behind the failed car explosion attempt.
No, I didn't have any inclination to do it, but I almost believe that he started his own car fire.
You mean to tell me that Alan started the car fire himself? Why would he try to do that and possibly hurt himself?
Well, I don't think he thought about hurting himself, and it took me a while to wrap my head around that he would possibly do anything like that.
The inspiration had come from considering the movie's popularity at the time they decided to look into Alan and Miriam's cable bill, and what they found would confirm their darkest suspicion. The links were too clear to ignore. Miriam had been looking for any possible way to get rid of her husband.
Do you believe your mother had anything to do with Alan's murder?
I do not.
With your father?
I do not, no.